My husband scowled and reprimanded me when I proposed that we celebrate Thanksgiving together at home this year. After all, we always go to our own families and spend Thanksgiving apart, so why are you changing your mind now? Our kids also chimed in, telling me to keep up with nowadays, young people don't insist on spending Thanksgiving with the other person's family. Although I gave in on the outside, I had already purchased a train ticket to his family's house, so when I got there, it became obvious to me that he didn't want to take me home because he had brought his first love. At least I didn't come in vain, and now I know why our kids always looked so nervous and uncomfortable whenever I mentioned wanting to spend Thanksgiving with him. I'm sorry, ma'am, but the tickets to San Diego are sold out, ma'am. A man was peeling when the agent's tentative question pulled me out of my reverie. I came back to reality and said, "Oh, never mind, thank you." Meanwhile, Alicia Swan, a well-known influencer in the community who is viewed as a role model by younger people, updated her social media. A rush of fan comments flowed in below the caption, "Another Thanksgiving, may we have another 30 years together," while a young couple in the yard fired off fireworks. The image was pleasant and harmonic, leaving viewers with a sense of peace. "You look so happy," Alicia responded. "Little sisters, you misunderstood. The man in the video is my old friend and his children. This is the 30th, look at Alicia's hands, she doesn't look like a 60-year-old at all. Please share your skincare secrets. I hope my mom gets this script in the next life." The man in the video was my husband of 30 years, and the children in the background were the ones I carried for 10 months and gave birth to. Many young people left heartfelt well wishes in the comment section, and I started laughing, but tears started to fall like strewn beads. I nearly wanted to call Duff right away and ask him why he had misled me. My husband, Duff Goldman, had been spending the last 30 Thanksgivings not seeing his long-lost relatives as he had claimed, but instead using it as a pretext to spend time with his first love for 30 years. The cold wind blew against my face, and all of a sudden, in the winter of our 10th year of marriage, everything fell into place. Marriage Duff had painstakingly crafted a necklace, but it wasn't for me. I was perplexed, but he clarified that it was a family heirloom for our daughter. I now realized that this was yet another lie. The necklace was for Alicia, and there were the Polaroid pictures that he always kept on hand before Thanksgiving, but after the holiday he had asked me to knit a scarf every year, promising to embroider plum blossoms on it, but I never saw him use it. One day, while cleaning, I discovered 2 plane tickets with Duff's hometown listed as the destination. I was thrilled that Duff had finally made the decision to take me home with him, and I instantly called to inform my parents that I would not be spending Thanksgiving with them this year, but as the days went by and Thanksgiving drew closer, Duff never mentioned it, so I took the initiative. What I didn't anticipate was that Duff, who is usually so kind, would become angry for the first time. He smashed his head. He took down his chopsticks and yelled at me, saying, "Can you stop thinking on a whim? We've always spent Thanksgiving apart, returning to our own families, so why is it so important for us to return to mine this year?" I was shocked, and when our kids David and I learned, I felt a wave of injustice rising inside of me. They all tried to persuade me, but it felt less like despite the fact that you and your father are married, he has always respected you and never bound you to his side. Take a look at how many couples visit their in-laws' homes every year and wind up having a terrible time because they don't get along with the relatives. Why can't you understand your parents? You need to stay up to date, don't you? You know that young couples nowadays frequently spend Thanksgiving apart, visiting their own families without any intervention. Dad's ideas are so forward-thinking that you don't value him, and now you're blaming him for it. As David became more heated and abruptly stopped politely shaking my hand, "Mom, if I were to get married and move to a far-off city and be unable to return for Thanksgiving, wouldn't you miss me and feel depressed? In addition, when you return, it's going to be stressful to deal with a bunch of unfamiliar relatives, and you might have to cook or something. Wouldn't it be better to just give yourself a few days off?" Hearing A's words made me feel less angry and hesitant, but after all these years, Duff had insisted that I felt like I had done enough for the family, so why were they treating me so harshly after all these years when my responsibility was to earn money and leave everything else, no matter how big or small, to me? I was always busy, my feet hardly touching the ground, and I couldn't even take a break to drink some water. As the sun sank in the west, I sat still on the bench, watching the world around me slowly fade into a blur, and even though it was finally time for us to relax and enjoy a family reunion, they still didn't want to spend it with me. Instead, they would rather tell me that I hadn't done enough for this family. When I eventually woke up and saw them, I only gave them a quick glance because I couldn't get the tragic image out of my head. David's voice was chilly, and he still had that irritated expression on his face. "Why didn't you return to San Diego? Mom? What about Bear? Who's going to care for him?" "Bear, our family dog, seems to receive more love and care than I ever did." I looked at the empty table, then at my children's faces, who were both clearly upset and unhappy. Thanksgiving and being in the hospital would make anyone nervous, but for me, who had carried them for 10 months and endured agonizing labor, it seemed like I was being unreasonable for being upset, and when they saw I was awake, their first reaction was to blame me. Their lack of concern felt like a blade slicing through me once more, and I had to fight back tears as bitterness filled my heart and my throat shook. I let out a sigh of sadness and asked your mother to be reasonable. Your brother and I hurried over after learning that you were in the hospital, only to discover that it wasn't a huge deal. I buried my hand in the mattress under the blanket and hurried over because you mentioned that you were traveling to Jacksonville this year, which takes 5 hours. They both furrowed their brows in perplexity as they looked at one another. Are you saying that every year we bring back local specialties from the cities we visit on Thanksgiving? Are you accusing us of lying to you? This is absurd if you consider that I was only unconscious for 30 minutes. Nothing else will be leaving. Now. Yes, they would travel to different cities for Thanksgiving each year, always returning with local specialties. For all these years, I never suspected anything because I had been totally duped by those closest to me. I clenched my hand, took out my phone, and David and I froze their bodies rigid with terror as they stared at each other in humiliation and perplexity, but there was not a shred of surprise or remorse. Mom. I clicked on Alicia's video and gave it to my kids, who were talking quietly. You've been celebrating Thanksgiving together for all these years, haven't you? I was the only one left in the dark, and I closed my eyes, trying to stifle the wave of sadness and rage that was rising inside of me as the tears started to fall. That silhouette really does look like us, don't you think? They had gone to such lengths to help Duff and Alicia hide the truth, still trying to hide their tracks. Started to fall. Duff entered the room out of nowhere, saying, "You tell me what you are doing here. Don't you know how worried everyone is at home? It's Thanksgiving, and you're causing trouble." She sounded helpless, as if I were the one causing a scene and ruining things for them. I'm in my 60s, and my hair has long since turned white from years of worrying about the family, but Duff continued to carry himself with that unwaveringly straight stance. You all should go. I had spent the majority of my life never really living for myself, and I had finally made the decision that I would no longer be bound by this lie. Time to start over. Did these kids bother you? If I didn't know any better, I would have assumed he genuinely cared. I tossed a pillow at Duff in a fit of wrath, and his eyes opened in astonishment, but he remained emotionless. Retorted, Esther, you're disrespectfully breaking the promise we made, and now you're saying these things just to get me mad. You've ruined a perfectly good Thanksgiving. We all had our own plans, and you've ruined them. Are you trying to make this our last Thanksgiving? As a family? We had been married for 30 years and had known each other for 40. He had always treated me well, never ignoring my feelings, and even our neighbors couldn't help but compliment him, envious of our marriage, which I used to secretly take pleasure in. He brought food onto the table, and as I stared at the irate man in front of me, the bitterness in my heart grew and the cold became unbearable. I took a deep breath and said in a cold tone, Duff, did you really think you could hide it for a lifetime after 30 years and more? I took pleasure in believing that this marriage would always be happy, but I never imagined that underneath the seemingly sweet surface, it was all a lie hiding things that had already been rotted away. The urge to cry was overwhelming. Your so-called mother and wife, Duff, stopped to look at our son and daughter. Their faces were frozen in shock, even though they were slow, and it didn't take a genius to figure it out. He opened his mouth and moved his lips, but no words came out of his face. You're not tired, so instead of sneaking around, I'll set you free, and you won't have to keep up the lie to me. Betrayed his panic, there was a tight and uncomfortable environment, so I got up and decided to leave. David was frustrated and blocked my path, saying in an impatient tone, Mom, is this really necessary? Dad and Aunt Alicia are both very old if they really cared, or else we wouldn't be here. Don't be so sensitive, and you're getting old. If you get divorced, who will look after you? What kind of life do you think you'll lead? David's right, Mom. We're just trying to make things easier. I looked up at them icily. How could they openly say things like, Dad brought you salad? That shows that he cares about you. He put the lunchbox in front of me and wished for me to put these problems behind him. With his hands on his knees, turned to face me with a flicker of expectation on his face. I've never liked kale, and the edge of the takeout box had lipstick marks on it the entire time. Duff had likely saved his true concern and consideration for someone else, leaving me with nothing but a box of salad with kale, which I detested, which somehow made me forget everything and not hold a grudge. David snapped, leaving me with nothing but the angry slam of the door after making half-hearted gestures. He looked at me, then at Duff, who sighed softly and departed after a long, heavy pause, after which he pinched his brow. Alicia's parents did so much for me, and I promised to look after them when she grew up. I even proposed marriage so I could be by her side as her husband, but she said she didn't want me to be her husband. I can clarify that things aren't the way you think, and I haven't been unfaithful. Didn't want to be stuck in a marriage, so all I had to do was spend Thanksgiving with her every year to fulfill my pledge. Her parents passed away too soon, leaving her extremely vulnerable and alone, and I was afraid that if I didn't go with her, she might do something drastic. Esther tried to understand my situation. Added, I just sit with her, have a meal, and talk through Thanksgiving, and that's all there is between us. I waited silently until he finished, and then he nodded in disagreement, asking, are you done, before we started talking about our divorce. Esther Duff became agitated and interrupted me, and I gave him a scornful look. You don't have to explain anything, I don't care at all. You've been keeping things from me for years, who can tell what you're saying is true and what isn't? Just give me a time when we can set up the divorce so you can return to your Alicia, and spend Thanksgiving with her. I appreciate you taking the time to pack her up. Leftovers for me at the time, a patient from the next room came back and gave Duff a glare of unmistakable contempt. Duff's face froze in embarrassment after a beat, and he said in a defiant tone, what's that to you? Didn't you used to scarf down leftover meals when you washed dishes at the restaurant Alicia's at? I remember the first year of our marriage, when Duff was fired during a crippling economic depression. He was unemployed for 4 months, and I kept this family together by working 3 part-time jobs day and night to save money. Healthy, what's there to worry about? Some words cut deeper than any blade, creating invisible wounds. At the restaurant where I worked, I even used every penny to eat leftover food from customers, which made my coworkers laugh at me. Those were the most agonizing days of my life, ones I'd rather forget. When Duff found out, his eyes filled with pity, and he held me close while crying with me through the night, promising never to let me suffer by forcing me to work non-stop or eat scraps. And now, at 60, Duff had the gall to turn that memory against me. Maybe he realized his error at once, and he shifted uneasily while I glared at him in silence. Every street and alleyway was alive with laughter and the distinct spirit of the holiday, but there I lay alone in a hospital bed when all of a sudden my phone buzzed with multiple texts from an unknown number. He got up and walked away, whispering, you're too worked up right now to talk calmly, I'm leaving. You take some rest first. Following Duff's return, Alicia's messages insisted that I had misunderstood everything and pleaded for us to meet up. I didn't know what was going on until I asked Esther, I think you've misunderstood too much, let's meet. I sincerely apologize for creating a rift between you and Duff, but I couldn't help but remember how Duff told me to calm down. That order was now tinged with irony. After I revealed the truth, he couldn't handle the humiliation and fled to Alicia's house, his own safe haven. David and I were also sending me texts, some attempting to comfort me and others making excuses for their father, Duff. I didn't respond to any of the messages, and my inner turmoil strangely subdued into a disconcerting calm before I was able to finish the checkout and leave the hospital alone. However, at the exit, I ran into an uninvited guest, and no matter what Alicia said, she wouldn't let me leave. Pulled me into a coffee shop nearby. You must be the Alicia Swan from the internet. Because he has been nice to you. He approached us with a smile on his face and asked for a picture of us together. His tone and expression were full of admiration and jealousy because, even at 60, Alicia still has had a captivating charm, immaculately kept skin, and an elegant outfit that made it easy to assume she was in her early 40s. Next to her, I looked just like the unremarkable old woman, and at one point I felt I wasn't worthy of sitting at her table because I believed her life was the Esther. I sincerely apologize for creating a split between you and your husband. Alicia added quietly, please allow me to cover the gap between you and your husband. That was a perfect script for today's youth, but now that the truth had broken every rose-colored filter ID once placed on her, I want to apologize, Bill Leighton. She moved a little bit, and everything she did exuded elegance. Esther, you really shouldn't let this bother you. Duff and the kids think of me as family, and I do too. Of course, I hope you can come see me as family too. I said nothing, just holding on to the warmth of I understand that you're upset with Duff, the kids, and even me, but don't hurt yourself over it, and you have no reason to worry that I'll offend you. Her tone was measured, and her eyes were gently arched, but beneath that calmness, I could sense a hint of provocation, the smug arrogance of someone who thinks they've already won. I put down my chopsticks because, as painful as it was to acknowledge that Alicia's words were true, if she had taken the initiative, Duff would still be married to you. Women shouldn't make things difficult for one another. I'm not here to ruin your family. Certainly dissolve our marriage in a heartbeat and rush straight into her arms, but why would he keep in touch at all if he didn't care about me? Was it out of duty to his family, or was it just loneliness? None of that could explain it, and I wasn't holding back when I demanded. After a lengthy, tense silence, she produced a picture and gave it to me. On one side, Alicia was wrapped in an embrace Duff, and on the other, Hank Goldman, Duff's older brother, whose features bore an uncanny resemblance to his hatred, and she admitted, I used to dream of being Hank's wife, but he betrayed me. He left me and quickly turned away to marry someone else. For the first time, I saw a flash of indignation and stubbornness. I never imagined I'd speak of him again, she said. I miss those early days so terribly. Alicia's usually composed expression showed defiance, but I didn't think he had forgotten his vows, so I started contacting Duff in the hopes that Hank would become envious enough to return to me. Her tone was full of assurance and expectancy, but as I listened, I found her remarks to be both ridiculous and juvenile. She touched them tenderly in the picture, and then tears came to her eyes as she made vows that, although they may be the least valuable in the world, those who swear by them take every word to heart. Alicia's demeanor abruptly returned to its high poise. But don't worry, I'm only using Duff. Nothing physical has ever been or will ever be between us, so what should I do but praise your moral superiority and be grateful that in all these 30 years of deceiving me, there has never been any physical betrayal? I shot back before the words could fully form when the sound of a cup breaking on the floor suddenly reached without any of us noticing. Duff had slipped in behind me and Alicia. Alicia looked at him in complete confusion, not sure if Duff had heard everything she said. Duff, what are you doing here? She asked, wiping away the tears from the corners of her eyes as she gestured for him to sit down. Duff's eyes were fixed on her. He reached out to brush away a tear from her cheek almost instinctively, startling Alicia at first. Then, remembering that there was another person there, he awkwardly withdrew his hand. It wasn't until I gave a silent, disapproving laugh that Duff jolted back to reality. He looked at me awkwardly before his gaze strayed to the Alicia watched his reaction, obviously unaware of his previous remarks. As he reprimanded her, how can you drink an iced Americano, as if forgetting her ongoing stomach problems. Duff hurriedly poured her a cup of hot water, checking the temperature on the back of his hand before passing it over. Discreetly breathed a sigh of relief because, after 30 years of sharing a house with Duff, when he refused to even turn on the water dispenser without my assistance, I realized that he could, in fact, look after someone. I know that your wrath has no outlet, so he went on, if you want to strike or yell at me, but I won't be upset because I've been lying to you for so long. But why must you make Alicia do this? You're not the Esther I knew, he added sourly. I'm very disappointed in you. I looked into his eyes, which were filled with overwhelming. I clenched my fists in fear that I might lose control and erupt in public. Disappointment. I could no longer relate to the first half of my life. How could a man so self-centered and oblivious to his own desires have any qualities worthy of my love? Am I meant to be a mother or a maid in our home, or do you just think that? Duff looked at me with a pained expression and begged me to stop talking. Mother is just a housekeeper, I said. You have no right to express disappointment in me. He shot back, I'm the one who should be disappointed. 30 years wasted. Kept in the dark by our entire family. I should have been the one to apologize to you both for starting this, but Alicia, who had been standing quietly by my side, suddenly interrupted. Duff then stepped up and swept Alicia into his arms, protecting her as if she were his most valuable possession. I watched in silence as in the early days of Duff's career, when friends and neighbors questioned him, I stood up for him with a heavy belly, reprimanding anyone who dared to question him. This terrible truth, which had previously been familiar, turned disgusting, leaving behind a dull, agonizing agony. Throw cold water on his dreams. I had such a strong belief in him that I resisted every insult and snide comment in order to protect his dignity. What I got in return was my own husband's mistrust and resentment while he protected another woman as though I were the bad guy. I felt like a clown, and I was one. Alicia screamed, Esther, you're crazy. As I scowled at Duff, my teeth gritted with wrath, and threw the coffee all over his face before throwing the cup at him with all the force I had left. You have no right to apologize on her behalf, Duff. I kept my voice cold, with the possible exception of the day of the divorce, until my lawyer would be in contact. Duff's face remained expressionless, but an icy aura emanated from him. If you truly need it, I can make arrangements for you to spend every Thanksgiving with her forever if you agree to a divorce, and we won't have to see each other again. Disregarding him, I started packing my things and getting ready to leave, permanently. As I went through my belongings, it hit me once more that 30 years of my life had been a complete failure. I collected all of my seasonal clothing, but some of it wouldn't even fit in a single suitcase. The only new clothes I'd gotten in recent years were the ones AA bought me when she got her first paycheck, and I'd been too hesitant to wear them. I remembered how AA had once worn her clothes. These clothes had been my constant companions for years. What was I thinking at the time? How could I have ever been willing to let myself suffer so much? With pride on her sleeve, she said that she and David would take care of buying my clothes from that point on. However, it appeared that they had forgotten that promise and had become accustomed to my sacrifices, as I kept the house running for them every day. I stared at the coat she gave me for what seemed like an eternity before finally, after years away, I returned it to the closet because I no longer needed it, and I didn't want to take it with me. I then entered a busy mall and went into the women's department, where I picked up a bright red dress and held it up in front of the mirror. A kind salesperson gave me a compliment and even chose a pair of shoes that went with it. I met with a divorce lawyer and carefully went over the separation papers. When she handed them to me, she smiled warmly. She caught my reflection and gave me a soft, liberated smile, not the tired one I'd worn after a day of non-stop housework, but one that spoke of being alive again, of finally living for myself before starting my journey. And said, "Ma'am, congratulations on starting your next adventure." That youthful smile calmed something deep inside of me. You see, ending a marriage isn't about having your future happiness stolen, rather, it's about starting a new chapter. Suddenly, after just a few days of rest, I had a lot of free time that I had never had before. I learned the true meaning of freedom and ease. I reasoned that since I still had the energy, I should travel across the nation or even the world to experience different cultures. I left without hesitation, and when David and the others returned home, they discovered the divorce papers neatly laid out. They left me more than a dozen voicemails on the table, each accusing me of being stubborn and making fun of the idea that our family could manage without me. Duff even called to ask if I really needed to go this far, assuming that their harsh words would break me and cause me to crumble under the weight of their disapproval, but they were wrong. After decades of being entangled in obligations and lies, I realized that I had far too few days left to live truly to waste on pointless arguments. Once you accept reality and let go of past attachments, your mind clears and the truth becomes undeniable. As for those who might soon be starting a new family with Alicia, I will wish them well as long as they can overcome their old entitlement tendencies and learn to accept her. Above all, Duff must never realize that he was only a pawn in their schemes. I'm switching my phone to I put all of my past behind me and headed for the boarding gate, ready to start a new life. Along the way, I met a ton of young, energetic, and passionate people who patiently taught me how to take pictures and compose shots and even encouraged me to start vlogging because they said my videos could inspire other people. Seniors like me found their enthusiasm both humorous and profoundly meaningful. At first, the comments were full of derision, accusing me of being attention-seeking, but I dismissed it because even if one person felt inspired, it was enough. Eventually, my videos started to receive a barrage of likes and sincere admiration, with many people leaving comments of envy and even called me a role model during my journey, but I ignored his calls at all hours. Once, I answered by accident, and I heard Duff standing by the washing machine, his face displaying a puzzled expression as he fumbled with the buttons in a tone full of self-pity. He asked, "Esther, when are you?" Upon returning home, I discovered that my clothes were filthy and that I was unable to operate the washing machine without waiting for my response. He then proceeded into the kitchen and inquired about how to distinguish between sugar and salt. I sighed in frustration. The resourceful Dove was obviously making an effort in his awkward attempt to give me a way out, but I wasn't going to give him that comfort, so I said, "Call me again when you're ready to sign the divorce papers, Esther." Must it really come to this? You know I've never wanted to break our family apart. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Duff, you've already failed. He stammered, now that you're 60 and you have me at home and Alicia out there, you can't have it both ways. There is no such thing in the world, just let me go. You married me when you were 30 only because you'd given up on Alicia, and for 30 years you clung to her. Your cowardice is what brought us here, he said sharply. When I was about to hang up the phone, Duff was at a loss, muttering that he knew he had done something wrong. He asked if I could come back, saying that he and his girlfriend wanted to see me. Maybe later, David, since you've been together for years, maybe after I've enjoyed my own vacation, I'll have time to resume my role as your devoted mother, so? I ended the call, putting the past behind me. As I proceeded on my path, Duff signed the divorce papers, and I went back to San Diego to pick up my divorce certificate. Before long, David and I began phoning me on the other hand. David exploded, saying, "Mom, have you considered my reputation at all? What will people say about me at your age, causing a divorce fuss? Can't you just act like nothing's wrong? It's just a meeting. Why must you make a big deal out of nothing? Aren't you ashamed? I'm going to start my own family, so even if you ignore Dad, you should consider me. Dad used to help me out, but now you've taken the majority of his money. Are you trying to ruin me?" he yelled. "And what about the asset division? Are you forcing Dad to give you his money? Is that even fair?" I said, "I supported you for almost 30 years, you know, and I fulfilled every duty, but what do you know about gratitude? Do you even understand what it means to be dutiful? I already let everything go calmly. I won't let you be that spoiled boy who would constantly break my heart again." He didn't fire back, and furthermore, if you have a daughter or young girl when you start your own family, can you stand by and watch her go through what I went through? After she gets married, she will have to deal with a lot of housework. And I added in the end, would you want your little sister to live the same life I did? Give me the money back, please. After a long, tense pause, his voice rose once again in self-justification. You talk about grand ideas, everyone has their own aspirations, and life is just fate's creation. I couldn't help but chuckle bitterly because I had never really stated a certain amount, and in all honesty, Duff was completely at fault. I said nothing more and hung up the phone. More than a month later, I ran into Duff again. He had aged significantly, and when he saw me, he hesitated before whispering, "You've changed so much," and indeed I had. As soon as my head hit the pillow, I fell asleep. I woke up naturally the following day, free from never-ending tasks and the need to please others, and I looked better for it. After I signed the paperwork, I handed the pen to Duff, who lowered his eyes and hesitated as though weighed down by the past. Finally, he asked in a hesitant tone if I promised that going forward, would you give me another chance to spend every holiday with you and break off contact with Alicia? I was surprised, but I gave a strong refusal, saying that it's like a graded test and that it doesn't matter how much you change your answers. I said icily, just sign the documents I've already wasted the first half of my life, don't waste the rest without more protest. Duff signed a month later, and Alicia became the talk of the town. Her name was trending online once more, and she saw a family photo that David had shared online, in which Alicia was seen holding Duff's son in a cozy embrace. The caption for the photo of familial bliss read, "True destiny endures the test of time," and it prompted a flurry of attention, discussion, and likes in the comment section. The picture showed a young woman, who was likely his wife, and their daughter beaming with joy in the middle. The five of them looked at every inch of it. Was flooded with well wishes, but some questioned whether her carefully chosen single image had been a ploy for clicks. This claim was swiftly overshadowed by a barrage of blessings, with one commenter even wondering if this was the same person who spent 30 Thanksgivings with Alicia before Alicia didn't respond but left a like. As other users chimed in to say that true love always finds a way, David, eager to flaunt their alleged new family, emailed me images of the positive comments and a note saying, "See, we're one happy family." I decided not to respond. Instead, I embarked on a new tour once more, but they had no idea that the house of cards would fall apart so quickly after I left. Alicia moved in with Duff, and at first everything seemed ideal, a picture of family bliss, with David and who had always grumbled about my incessant nagging. Now, they even started to enjoy Delicia's kind, calming demeanor. Without hesitation, she called her mother later. When Alicia began using her own funds to hire a nanny, the family's love for her soared even more. One day, the nanny was so busy with work that she didn't have time to go out naked. Seeing an opening, Alicia offered to take him out instead of she decided to take a stroll in a shopping mall instead of going to a quiet park, but the mall had a strict no-pet policy. Unable to resist, Alicia slipped into an AO's clothing store, where a bear was waiting outside. By the time she came out, the bear had disappeared without a trace, and panic broke out after hours of desperate searching and a frantic call to the police, but Bear was still missing. When she got home, the nanny had already left without a hitch. Alicia placed all the blame on her and fired her right away. One would have thought that would be the end of it, but Alicia had misjudged how much Bear meant to incensed. And David stormed over to the fired nanny's place and unleashed a tirade that left her reeling and embarrassed in front of their neighbors. The poor nanny had lost not only her job but also her dignity after learning the whole truth. She had been a playmate for years and was more treasured than even her best friend. The nanny, feeling wronged by A's scathing accusations, took to the internet to expose Alicia. She denounced Alicia for her habit of lying and avoiding responsibility, her air of superiority, and her constant contempt for her peers and hardworking employees. Her post immediately went viral, and animal lovers deluged Alicia's comment section, demanding that when and David heard the whole story, they were shocked to see that the woman they had once accepted into their family could act in such a way. In a sudden turnabout, they made Alicia apologize and insisted that she find Bear, but she refused, claiming it was just an innocent mistake and blatantly arguing that Bear had only himself to blame, and HEK, who was old enough to know better, sneered, "If he wanders off, so be it, I can always get another." Out of pure frustration, A contacted me after all these years, for I had always taken care of Bear Mom, and we exchanged some terrible words when they added, "You always treated Bear so well, we know you must be worried about him." They weren't totally wrong. Bear had always been the best member of our small family and would excitedly pick up the grocery bag when I went shopping. We were upset, but we couldn't just let it go. He was my constant companion, and whenever I tied a knot on the garbage bag at the door, he faithfully carried it to the dumpster at home. When Bear went missing, I was just as upset as they were, despite the fact that I felt powerless to help. After their call, I frantically tried to remember every park and corner Bear that they loved to visit and relay every address. Fortunately, after a few anxious days, Bear was discovered safe and sound. He had been hanging out in the park. I often visited with him, but the drama didn't stop there. The incident caused a huge online commotion, and as soon as Bear was found, the internet was ablaze with controversy. The netizens searched through Alicia's social media. Insiders started disclosing facts about Duff's divorce and even recounted the chaos in that fateful coffee shop as questions and concerns about why a 60-year-old would marry someone who already had children, and even an ex-wife rushed in. As more and more information surfaced, some admirers backed Alicia's tweets, saying that genuine love always finds a way to be understood. Others retorted, "Where did the original wife go, and how can a couple who have spent the majority of their lives together suddenly decide to move on?" When she shared that video of them spending the 30th Thanksgiving together, she claimed that the man was only a confidant, given that his divorce was only finalized a few months ago. Where is his wife now, and is it possible that the original wife caught him cheating? People who had previously accused Alicia of only pursuing clicks even started sharing screenshots with comments like, "Why delete my comment?" and "Did I really hit a nerve?" Soon, both Alicia and Duff were trending nationwide, and local neighbors even created timelines that pieced together the actual order of events, from being the target of envy to being the target of widespread derision. Alicia chose to remain silent and simply deleted her account. The online community then focused on David, with a flurry of commenters bombarding his posts, calling him ungrateful and shameless, and labeling him a heartless ingrate. The controversy raged. My travel account and the small section of the internet where I shared my journey were eventually unearthed by curious netizens after one comment. Even my old neighbors, upon hearing the news, rallied to my defense, accusing Duff and calling David spoiled brats who had never learned gratitude. May everyone have the courage to start over, and may everyone soon realize that life is meant to be lived for oneself, I said when asked how I felt about everything. That one comment received countless likes and praise for its wisdom, and in a matter of days, my followers exploded, and I continued hitting. Who would have imagined that, after leaving that unloving home, I would find success? I was no longer the invisible old lady I once was. Instead, I exuded confidence and influence, becoming so influential that a local senior college invited me to visit and even speak. Vitality, as though my long-awaited spring had finally arrived, unhindered by aging and lost years, because the college was located right here in San Diego. It wasn't completely surprising when I ran into Duff and Alicia again, though, because after I finished my speech and left the building, I noticed Duff standing beneath. Ahe asked hesitantly, looking like a shriveled eggplant left out in the sun, his face creased with fine lines and exhaustion after decades of knowing each other. I greeted him like an old friend. "I'm doing well, how's the family?" And he looked at me, Esther, with trees shading his gaze. He whispered, "You still talk to me," with a slightly hesitant smile, but something in his familiar eyes made me feel suddenly alienated. Before I could process it any further, Alicia came around the corner, her voice shrill and hysterical. "Duff, I can't believe you suddenly agreed to come pick me up. You knew Esther was coming here, it turns out," and I realized that everyone had changed. Alicia's eyes, which had been bright and full of light, now seemed dimmed, and as usual, human nature craves gossip. Her loud outburst even caused onlookers to pause and listen. "You can't let her go, can you? You've become colder, and you'll never forget her. I must have been blind and cursed for 8 lifetimes to have chosen you," she screamed, "and you just sat there in silence." Then, with a sudden motion, Alicia picked up a stick and started running after Duff along the roadside while onlookers whispered and watched the events unfold. Someone whispered that she was once my role model, but now she has completely changed and lost her once elegant aura. Another witness added, "Have you heard that since all that family scandal, they haven't been able to hire a decent nanny? They've even delayed it. When they paid their housekeeper, it was all revealed, and now they are blacklisted by every local agency. Everything is outsourced to Alicia, so she will never have to go through those taxing days again." "How could they possibly delay wages?" Someone else laughed. "She used to make a lot of money, and Duff's pension doesn't even add up." But then someone else said, "Not at all. Alicia's money was stolen long ago by that slick-talking David to pay for his down payment on a house, and who knows when he'll ever repay it." Suddenly, the rumors and conjecture spread, with each comment stoking a fire that showed no signs of dying down. The entire farce wasn't stopped until the college administrators intervened. Later, I discovered the true cause of Duff and Alicia's heated arguments. On my infrequent visit home, I had intended to catch up with some old friends who shared Duff's neighborhood because I happened to be passing my old house. "You see, Esther's back, so her old romance must be rekindling, right? Otherwise, why else would you be searching for her news? Don't think I don't know you were surreptitiously checking." I got snippets of Duff and Alicia arguing. Her pictures in the middle of the night. "You're so disgusting that you're truly out of how dare you accuse?" A loud smack came out of nowhere, shocking even the birds perched on a neighboring branch. "Don't think I haven't realized that you've been taking advantage of me since the you've loved Hank Wa from the start, so why do you keep dragging me along and wrecking my life?" Was surprised by these remarks, although they weren't totally unexpected. The truth always comes out in the end, so how dare you beat me, Duff? If he were here, he wouldn't have allowed me to feel so wronged, so how dare you touch me? Esther, why are you standing there? Come on, I'm prepared to fight you. I was encouraged by a friend's entrance, and we rushed to catch up when the subject of Duff and Alicia appeared, and my friend's eyes grew cold as she whispered a depressing statement through her resentful grumbles. I quickly put the whole tale together. Alicia really simply wanted everything to be given to her if anyone who didn't comply with her demands would be met with sarcastic contempt. One instance even included David bringing he invited his girlfriend, who owned a pet shop and had long held grudges against Alicia over the bear, over for dinner. Debacle that evening, she could hardly stand Alicia's presence anymore. As if things couldn't get much worse, Alicia immediately lost it and started throwing dishes, and missiles were aimed at the young lady, almost destroying the house, and to make things worse, she was A's best friend, and Alicia was able to insult 3 people simultaneously with that behavior. As time passed, it became impossible for the family to live in peace for even a single day, and soon it wasn't just the family who became irritated, the neighbors started complaining as well, and the police were even summoned multiple times. Duff and Alicia became more and more unwanted in the town, nearly always hiding behind. I listened to all of this behind closed doors, grinning icily and without any trace of as our chat went on. I felt nothing at all, whether it was sadness or delight. My friend asked me where I was. I was about to head next when my phone rang and said, "Your ticket has been successfully issued. You can check in now." I showed my friend my phone online beforehand so they could view it, and Sadie brought you a gift on the day of my return. Departure. The weather was fantastic. I wasn't totally sure where I was going next, but a fellow tourist asked. It was obvious that I would never again stand motionless in one spot. I would always be moving, pursuing new horizons.